Pro Baseball Today right here on the SportsGrid Network on a day which is Sunday, days away from opening day in Major League Baseball. Feels like we finally made it. I'm Donnie Rightside. He's Tom Vecchio, and we got you covered for a lot of hot topics. WBC, previews of some of these teams, and more importantly, we got starting pitchers lined up for opening day as well, Tom. Great to finally, Major League Baseball is back in our lives officially this week, Tom.
Yeah, I was going to say, we made it. We made it through the offseason, through the slow months, but we're here. We have baseball, real baseball that will be played later this week. We had the WBC, as you said, which was fun. We'll get to that, but real games are on tap. The players are ready to go. Players are making and missing opening lineups. I'm ready.
It's going to be a good season here, and I just feel it because I don't know, Tom, what's going to happen in the future here with the lockout. Could there be a strike? But I know we're going to get baseball this year, and also always fun to watch these late March games, early April games. Like, hey, what are the weather conditions here? 32 degrees, flurries in the forecast, 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing in at Wrigley Field. Get ready for all that and much more, Tom. But we did just see a WBC go into the chapters again, where the Team USA made it to the final, just not able to win it here. Venezuela, the champions here, Tom, of the WBC. Your first thoughts in thinking back on this tournament, how it went, but more importantly, Venezuela, best team in the world right now. They earned it.
They are. I thought the tournament was great. A lot of people would say that it wasn't perfect. It wasn't this, it wasn't that with the players and their participation. I understand that. We'll get into that. But, I think it was fantastic. It was great to see the players at the highest level. It gives us like this appetizer for the MLB season to see these stars, fully in effect. I like to think that, we got a lot right about the WBC when we talked about it, when we previewed it. I talked to you about Venezuela potentially winning their group, because they were in the same group as the Dominican Republic. Now, granted, DR won that group. Venezuela obviously comes through and wins that. But the stars were there. The passion and the emotion was there for so many of the players and the teams. I thought it was fantastic. Was it perfect? No, I don't think anyone would agree that it was a perfect tournament. And there are things that can be changed and altered about it. But I think it was better than what we saw a couple of years ago. And I think it'll get better moving forward.
I do as well. And we're going to go over some of those changing topics which might happen, Tom. But we take a look at Pool A, B, C, and D, which these teams were sectioned off in. Canada won Pool A at 3-1. Then there was Italy at 4-0, Japan at 4-0 in Pool C, and then the Dominican Republic at 4-0 in Pool D. Neither one of those teams that won the division actually won the pool, I should say, wound up in the championship game, which ended up being the United States versus Venezuela. Any shocks on that? Because you saw a little bit of that sour milk. Like when the U.S. lost, okay, tip your cap, Venezuela was better. But the Dominican Republic, they weren't happy, and they still felt, even though they didn't even make it to the championship game, Tom, they were the best team in the world.
From an on-paper perspective, they might have the best lineup in the world. Like, that's what we always talk about. Like, they have a fantastic lineup. But, this is why it's important to win your group or, make sure you're advancing and you don't need help to advance, as the U.S. did with that final game versus Italy versus Mexico. But, how things shaked out, I thought it was fine. Seeing the best teams advance is good, but those teams need to win ultimately. And that's what happened with DR. It's what happened with Japan. They got knocked off. Both these teams were the second and third favorites. It was USA as the odds-on favorite coming into the tournament. Japan and DR were next, and neither of them made it to the championship game. But, it's still good to see those teams advance, and all credit to Venezuela. They have an awesome team, awesome lineup. Their bullpen was unbelievable throughout the entirety of the tournament.
And also understand this as well, where we're still in spring training mode. The players wanted to win. Yes, they did. But all throughout this tournament, Tom, we had some caveats, even into the final where, Venezuela's manager was taking calls from Major League. Hey, look, I don't want to use my guy. You used him 2 nights, the past nights. I can't have it again. And then you flip it over to the United States, which might have bit them at the end of the game, which Mason Miller was only available for a save situation when there wasn't a save situation there, and the U.S. team ends up getting beat 3-2. But understand this, too. There were some big moments, Tom, but I want to ask you this question, because we always feel like the bats sort of have to come around and they work on things in spring training. The United States bats were hot early on, Brazil hammering them around, to have some lower-level competition like Great Britain. But once we got into the knockout stages, they really seemed to struggle, Tom, and against Venezuela. Championship game, only 3 hits in total for that lineup.
This is what we often talk about. I immediately think of, NFL week 1 and 2. We always say like, defenses are ahead of offenses, where it's like, take some time for the offense to get going. And that's the same. Like, a hitter can have a good swing and get you a home run like Aaron Judge, Roman Anthony, whatever it might be. But of course, actual consistency at the plate takes some time for the offenses to get going. And pitchers, just because it's incredibly hard to hit a fastball, they're always going to be half a step ahead, especially this early in the season. So what we saw from the USA in the championship game, to me, was just unacceptable. Only 3 hits. I would rather have them 10 hits and leave all those runners on base and still not score. But it was a terrible performance.
Yeah, too much talent there to only have 3 hits. But also, we might have saw one of those highlights where it's like Venezuela's up 2-0, bottom of the 8th inning. Here comes Bryce Harper. You get the leadoff walk there by Bobby Witt with 2 strikes. I should say leadoff, a 2-out walk, followed by a 2-run home run, which you thought things were looking up. And then, Tom, we get into the, players aren't available here, players aren't there. And also understand this, Nolan McLean started that championship game, which would have lined up perfectly for Tarek Skubal. We're not saying the changes would have been different where the U.S. would have won, but maybe Skubal gives up 1 run instead of 2, and you have a 2-1 lead in the 9th inning, and Mason Miller is available at that point there for the save here. What did you think about Tarek Skubal overall in the competition? Because he did pitch 1 game, was still in the dugout, but it was just so interesting where he pitched in spring training, Tom, but then was like, you know what? I could pitch in the final, which really had Skeens and Skubal in the final. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Just didn't happen.
It didn't, a lot of people want to blame Skubal. Like, I almost want to blame the other pitchers that denied the chance. Where was Garrett Crochet? Yeah. Where was Max Fried? Where was Hunter Brown? All these players, there was a report leading up to the championship saying the Team USA reached out to those players, obviously last year, and they asked them to be on the team. They all denied it. So, as much as we wanted to see Skubal, I also wanted to see the other best players at Team USA, because then it wouldn't be on Skubal. Then you could have a rotation of Skeens, Skubal, Crochet, and Hunter Brown, and having 4 of them. And even if 1 or 2 step back, you still have the others with Logan Webb. And Logan Webb was great. He pitched in pool play. He pitched in bracket play. All credit to him. Having those 5 guys would have been fantastic, right? So that's what I want to see. I wanted to see Skubal pitch. I also want to see Garrett Crochet pitch for Team USA. And that just didn't happen either.
Tom, I think it's like each and every time they put on the WBC, it seems like the players care more. Now, it was never a question to me that, Japan, Dominican Republic, and Venezuela would care. It's like, what does Team USA bring to the table? The most talented country in baseball, but it just seems like we weren't all in the past. I think we're finally getting to that point where these players are really caring about the tournament, which adds extra level of incentive here. And I love what the turnout happened. Now, USA didn't win, Venezuela won. Fantastic stuff. So let me ask you this question. When we start to go in a couple years here in time, should we keep this W Baseball Classic in spring training, a la before the season? Or, Tom, which I'm telling you, I would love it. You want to extend baseball and just say, give me 2.5 weeks in the middle of the summer where everybody's available, everybody can pitch, and everybody can play. Remove the All-Star game and just have this. Tom, I think it would be a sensational product. And I am selfish with this, too. Like, I can't stand the All-Star break because baseball is taken away from me for 7 days. That wouldn't happen. We'd have World Cup-style baseball in the middle of the summer instead of the All-Star game and then go back to the regular season, Tom. I would love it in the summer. I would.
I think they should do what the NHL did for the 4 Nations tournament last year, and they have to alternate. So it'd be 1 year, it would be the All-Star game. The next year would be the World Baseball Classic, and it would be in the middle of the summer, to your point. And that would also help with the players are fully ready. Like, it's July. They've had hundreds of at-bats, hundreds of innings pitched at that point. They're fully stretched out, the pitchers. They're all locked in. Now, granted, some of the pitchers may not want to put an extra dozen or some odd innings, multiple 100-pitch outings on their arms at that point, especially if they are in a wild card race. But at least they could give you 6 innings, right? They could give you 5 or 6 at a minimum, and that would be good. So I think there needs to be some working, obviously, back and forth between the teams, the league, the players, to give us this World Cup style in the middle of the season every other year, because we still want to see the teams have all-star games in their home parks. But if we just alternate it, that could be great for everyone.
It would be great. And also, it might take a little bit too long. Like, you just heard what Tom said, the 4 nations, which meant they picked 4 nations here for the tournament. You do that in baseball, that can work as well. There's 4 nations that would really get after it, and the passion would be there, and it'd be a fantastic product. But the WBC was really good. Congratulations to Venezuela, the champions of the World Baseball Classic, Tom. But you know what we got to get to next year? Opening day is right on the horizon, and we're going to be ready to talk about it here. We got sides, we got totals, we got action, everything you need right here on Pro Baseball Today. We'll be back after this short break. Donnie, Rightside, Tom Vecchio here, Pro Baseball today. Oh, it feels so good to say it. Wednesday night, Major League Baseball opening day. Now, Tom, let me ask you this. Like, from the traditionalist point of view, do we like opening day as everybody gets to play on opening day and we're all ready for it? Let's just say it will be Thursday. Or do you actually like, now, granted, you're a Yankee fan, so you probably like it regardless because they're playing on opening night. Do you like the standalone game? I got to tell you, I kind of do like it as the appetizer to opening day, to be honest.
I do too. Like personally, I think it should be, the World Series champion. I think it should be the Dodgers. Just like, oh, they have their moment. They're at home. They have the opening ceremony, all this, that, the other thing. That's what I think it should be. But like you said, it is an appetizer for us, and it gets us set for a full day over the next 2 days, and obviously every day following that. But like, all eyes on one game is great. When it starts at Thursday at noon or 1, that's great. But when there's 4 or 5 games going at the same time, it kind of gets a little bit jumbled. I want to see this one primetime game open up on Wednesday. World Series champion playing an opponent, and that is the precursor to a full slate on Thursday and Friday.
Now, we'll get into all these pitching matchups because they have been released here. A lot of these angles don't have totals yet because we're still a couple days in advance, and that's fine. But we do have the numbers for opening night. But let me ask you this question, Tom, because I love opening day. But you know what we really love? We've done so many shows together. Hey, this pitcher's not that good. We see angles that we can exploit these pitchers. The tough thing about opening day and even the day after is, Tom, you're getting number 1 fully rested, number 2 pitcher fully rested on those first 2 days. Talk to me about like saying, you know what? I love these matchups opening day, but I'm expecting a lot of low totals. And as you take a look opening day here, which is the Yankees and the Giants, 6.5 is the total, Tom.
Yeah, it's certainly tough. And I was actually digging into it yesterday, Donnie. As you know, I'm a fan of the hit parlays for 2 players just to get a hit, whatever it might be.
Absolutely,
but it's like, how do I trust a player getting a hit against Max Fried? Can I trust Aaron Judge getting a hit against Logan Webb? And it's not just, Logan Webb's a good pitcher. Like, Logan Webb is tuned up. Like, he had the starts in the WBC. He's already pitched in high leverage situations to start the year. So I want to dig into it. But like you said, we're getting SP1s against SP1s, and really we're going to hold serve on that really for the next few days. But it's certainly tough, but there are still angles to attack. Could be first fives, could be first 5 unders, first 5 money lines. I'm expecting Skeen's money line, which we'll get to later, first 5 money line be a plus money. Those are the angles to attack.
Yeah, and also Tom brings up a good point because even though we do have some of these guys that were pitching in the World Baseball Classic, they're still ramping up. And no Major League Baseball manager is going to say, okay, we're going to get Max Fried or Logan Webb. Hey, he's at 98 pitches. Yeah, let him go out the next inning. He might throw another 20 pitches. That's not happening. No, we're not saying also that they're going to throw 65 or 75 pitches, but you're not going to see 113 pitches on opening day. And also understand this, when you're handicapping Yankees and the Giants, you see right now that price point about a -122, just looking on the FanDuel Sportsbook, Tom, in the 6.5 that we just told you. It's Fried versus Webb. 2 really good pitchers at this point. But understand this too, Tom, when you're handicapping these type of games, we don't have the bullpen, which again, coming in healthy through the season is fine. Still working out, Tom, that 6th inning guy, that 7th inning guy, that 8th inning guy. Most teams already have their closers picked out by day number 1, but it's interesting just to see this. Do you agree, though, that the Yankees at a -122 price, give or take, should be the favorites here on opening night against the Giants on the road?
I do to an extent.
Yeah.
Logan Webb certainly deserves a ton of credit. And listen, if there's any chance to back Logan Webb, I honestly don't know if there's going to be any other starts this season that he's going to be at home getting plus money. The only other circumstance would be when he's facing the Dodgers, when that comes around, just because there's so much public money on the Yankees and the Dodgers that Logan Webb deserves it. So if someone came into this blindly and said, I want to take Logan Webb at home at plus money, I see absolutely no issues with that. What I'm immediately thinking of, Donnie, is what's the weather going to be like? Now, obviously, we're a couple days out from this, but it's going to be the afternoon, evening, night in San Francisco in late March in what is already a pitcher's park. That does not scream warm weather, beautiful. It's going to be like in the 40s with a little bit of wind, and it's going to be misty and hazy and absolutely frigid. Not great hitting weather, perfect pitching weather.
Jacket and baseball, which is kind of, because I know the Yankees are always a national draw, but again, you talk about like, okay, where's the spot you want to put in, which typically, the northern teams like to start in the South for the most part. They try to line those up, or teams like have dome stadiums or retractable roofs can use it. It's interesting that they put it in San Francisco, but again, network's going to love East Coast, West Coast, big market San Francisco, big market New York Yankees. That'll be fine, Tom. Just going over the game itself, as we said, Fried versus Webb, and I know you love to do this hitter prop parlays here. FanDuel Sportsbook, Tom, just taking the 2 favorites on the board. Louis Rise to get a base hit -250. Aaron Judge to get a base hit minus 210. That parlay pays back minus 104. Like, I'm already getting those vibes again where baseball is so unique in the way you can operate with so many different things in a single game. It's fantastic stuff. And just to see that, and again, there's no handicap on that. 2 good pitchers, 2 good hitters, minus 104 at this point. But the attack structure here, it's always great. It wasn't too far off time. Like, hey, you just can pick a side and you could just, money line or a total in this game and deal with it. So many different ways to bet. And also, as we lead up to opening day, so many more different ways to bet as well. But they all have the record a hit props, which I love, Tom. 2 favorites, minus 104. Come on now. Base knock here, base knock there, cash in your pocket.
All right. I was already looking at that yesterday. I was also looking at some of the strikeout props that we have for those pitchers, which are listed. I was looking at Fried under 5.5. That was juiced pretty heavily around minus 160 or so yesterday afternoon. So, we are getting into this. And, as we go on throughout the season, obviously we will kind of hone in on the markets that you and I both love, which are the HRR markets, the RBI markets, wherever it might be. But it's finally good to start seeing these start being posted.
Let me ask you a question too, Tom, because we always talk about the Yankees and their home runs. Aaron Judge, the MVP, can he hit 50 home runs? He's listed right now at 49.5, which means 50 home runs it's going to take to cash in. And can he do it? Absolutely. But when you think about that, you need 50 home runs to cash a ticket. It's kind of incredible. But I look at Cody Bellinger down there, 23.5 home runs. Short porch out there. I think he gets to 25. If you're looking at those Yankee players, Tom, Aaron Judge, Ben Rice, Cody Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm. Who would you like to make a play on for a home run prop, over or under on these?
It might be Ben Rice, and it would be going to the over where, he's expected to start at first base. But there's some reports saying that when, obviously he's a lefty, great exit velocity, but there are some reports saying that he will shift from first base to catcher and get Austin Wells out of the lineup, obviously when they're facing righties versus lefties, those sorts of things. So his playing time may be elevated this year. So he goes from first to catcher, and he's not being pulled out of the lineup because they obviously have to juggle with Stanton being a DH only, essentially.
And also, you take a look at that, estimated lineup. We don't know exactly where they're going to fit in, but let's just say Ben Rice does hit fourth. That means a lot of players are going to be on base for him, high leverage situations for him, and also maybe an RBI prop or two that you could take a look at. But opening night, Tom, Wednesday night in the Bay Area, it's going to take place at 8:05 p.m. Eastern here. And correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, is this an Apple game, I believe, which I think people are pretty upset about here? Could be. We'll find that after the break. Don and Tom, talking a little Major League Baseball. Keeping it in the Big Apple, people. That's the New York Mets. Had a really advantageous offseason and adventurous one on top of that. Got themselves an ace pitcher in Peralta, made a move for some big money on Bichette. The lineup looks talented. The only question is going to be who's actually going to be fielding their position and doing that above average. Tom Vecchio and Donnie Rightside, they're going to take on the Pittsburgh Pirates, Tom. Now, I want to ask you this question first. I'm not saying that Major League Baseball gets, everything wrong. Some of the changes they made, the pitch clock here, fantastic. Take away the shifts. I absolutely love all of that. But here's what has to change, and maybe it does if they do lock them out next year. Connor Griffin, who didn't light the world on fire, had some power, hit under 200, I get it. But you want to get this kid as many at-bats as you can because he could be a future superstar, Tom. And, of course, they sent him down to the minor leagues, not because the Pirates have expectations of a World Series. The Pirates have expectations. They don't want to pay this guy and start his clock. Can we please just start here with baseball? Why is this guy not at the major league level day number one?
I would like to know that answer as well. Obviously, I want to see him. Like you said, he hit under 200 in spring training. The power is clearly there. A lot of people are going to say, is this about service time manipulation? Here's what I don't understand. There are reports out there by multiple people, high-level reporters, saying that the Pirates are in talks and considering with Connor Griffin a 9-year, $100+ million contract, right? So if they're going to pay him, or those conversations are at least started, then his service time doesn't matter. Because if you're just going to pay him and give him that contract extension, whether he starts or comes up on April 1st, May 1st, June 1st, that service time is irrelevant if you're just going to extend him, and then that gets him out of ARB. So he should be there. The Pirates last year were in the bottom 5 for average attendance. So even if he does struggle at the plate, there's something about starting the year on a good note for the fan base and starting the year with some level of optimism for your Cy Young pitcher and now a future franchise shortstop to be in there and have them coming up at the same time. That's what you want, because Paul Skeens said in the WBC, he said in an interview after he pitched at the pool play, that it was great to pitch in front of a stadium with a full crowd, which is obviously he was alluding to. That's not what he gets in Pittsburgh. So to see him slightly unhappy and not have another star player alongside him, to me, it just seems like the days for Paul Skeens are numbered. And Connor Griffin, if his days aren't numbered, when is he going to sign the contract?
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up, too, because maybe it's a little bit of leverage that Pittsburgh's using, which they try to do on everybody before they get up to their final arbitration year and have to trade him at this point. But if you do bring him up, maybe the agent goes, now he's already up, his clock is started. How about a couple extra more $1 million because you already started? Like, no. Before that contract is signed, you're going back down to the minor leagues. But I always like to equate it to like the NFL, Tom. Like, imagine the number 1 overall pick is like, you know what? We don't want to pay you on that sooner than later, 5th or 6th year. If we keep you out of competition for the first year, then we get 6 years with you instead of 5. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense, and I wish baseball would change that. But here we go, Tom. Paul Skeens looked really good in midseason form out there in the WBC. He's going to take on Freddie Peralta, who just came over from Milwaukee as now the de facto ace of the Mets staff here, Tom. -116, -102 split as the slight favorite to the New York Mets. Skeens on that mound, Tom, as you pointed out. Maybe just like a first 5 look, but these two pitchers should be able to get after it on opening day.
They really should. Some of the same feelings they have for Yankees Giants, where it's not going to be warm. It may be nice out for a game in Queens on a Thursday in late March. It's not going to be warm. It's going to be cooler. Looking towards a first 5 under potentially once we get those lines posted. But there are very few chances to get Paul Skeens at close to even money and or plus money if that's what he gets posted at when it comes to the first 5. So I would expect a lack of offense, at least in the first 5. Listen, if the Mets offense gets rolling, it's going to be against the Pittsburgh bullpen. It's not going to be against Skeens in the first 5.
Take a look at that lineup for the Yankees. And again, 1 through 9, just looking at them in order here. Forget about where they're playing in the field. Francisco Lindor, Soto, Bichette, Polanco, Robert Jr., Beatty, and Simeon. Like, you have some absolute pop in that lineup, Tom. Juan Soto was great last year. His home run total listed this year at 37.5. And then you take a look at Mr. Bo Bichette at 17.5 as a number. Now, granted, hard to hit home runs at Citi Field. I mean, it's just say hard, but it's one of those pitchers' ballparks as opposed to true hitters' ballparks here. How do we feel? Soto hit 43 bombs last year, Tom, and now they're telling you 37.5. Is that value for you, or maybe a step back for Soto?
It's not a step back for Soto. It's just I think the number's too accurate. If he gets to 39, I'm not going to be shocked. He gets to 42, I'm not going to be shocked. I just like Bo Bichette. I think if he's going to be hitting a little bit further down in the lineup, hopefully that 3-4, not in that 2 spot where Soto's going to be hitting, I think Bo Bichette will have better looks at the plate for chances. And listen, this is a player who's had 20-plus home runs in 3 straight seasons when he was with the Blue Jays. I think there's just more margin for error and room for growth, essentially, with Bo Bichette.
Yeah, nice for Bo Bichette, man, in front of you. Lindor and Soto here. You should have guys on the plate all over the place to try to knock them in. Bichette listed at 17 and a half home runs. How many did he hit last year? Oh, that's right. He hit 18 home runs. So maybe a sharp number on there for Bichette. Going to a new team at this point here. We got more opening day news and notes to go over, getting you ready for opening day on Pro Baseball Today. We'll be right back.
It's not sustainable. Pitches throwing too hard and not being healthy, so that don't benefit anybody as well. So it's better to, if a guy throwing 97, why not just throw 94, 93 and learn how to pitch? And then you can last longer. So it's more about keeping the product, on the field and being on a consistent basis.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
About the expansion stuff.
Yeah, but doesn't it make a lot of sense, Kevin? So but it's 28-29. He's already talked about, I'm playing in the Olympics in 2028. Retirement isn't on KD's mind right now. Play in the Olympics in 2028, and then the 2029 season, play where it all started, baby. Seattle.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
If you could argue UConn's more overseeded than, the idea that UConn was battling for a 1 seed, quite frankly, never made any of sense to me when you look at where their metrics were stacked.
UConn will be great as long as they don't play St. John's, apparently, in the tournament. They're good to go there. But you put them at a 5, Kevin. Now here we go again, like last year, Bill Self versus Rick Pitino.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Major League Baseball announced yesterday that they will be having a partnership this season with a company that we've come to be very familiar with over the last 6 months. Polymarket is the exclusive prediction market partner of Major League Baseball and the only platform allows to use teams, logos, and marks. Representing the latest pro league to embrace the prediction markets.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Can you feel the excitement, people? Opening day is going to take place on Wednesday night in the Bay Area. Yankees versus San Francisco Giants. We're going down each and every team, some of these matchups, just to get you excited here. Now, no real angles to play just yet, and sometimes finicky in the late March months, late days of March, and then into April before you start to settle into the springtime temperatures, the warmer weather in May, June, and July. We'll get those hitting temperatures here sooner than later, Tom. But the team that had the most wins in Major League Baseball last year. Oh, it was the Phillies. Oh, the Yankees? No. Oh, the Dodgers. No, it was not. It was the Milwaukee Brewers who made some changes this year. And I don't know if they're a better baseball team, Tom, because you had the most wins in baseball, didn't work out in the playoffs, then you didn't spend any money in the offseason, and traded your all-star pitcher here, Freddie Peralta, to be the ace of the New York Mets in your own division, or should I say league. Now they're going to take on here. Mizorowski is going to be that lead dog here, Tom. Minus 184 price going up against the White Sox without a lot of expectations. And Mr. Smith will be on the mound for them. Brewers, a lot of changing parts here. And I don't know if it's for the better, Tom.
I don't know if it's for the better either. And, looking at their win total this year, something we talked about a couple of weeks ago, where there's a part of me just wants to take the under on it just because they over-exceeded last year leaps and bounds. It's not like, their win total was 87 and they got to 92, 93 wins. No, they exceeded by such a large margin. And when we see the differential of the wins at the end of last year with the win total that they have this year, that gap tells us something. That differential tells us something, that they have talent leaving their team in the offseason, and they're also not really adding any talent to it. Now, do I think the top of their lineup's pretty good? I do, but I also don't know if it's good enough really to get them over the hump and really hit that upper end of the outcomes that they had last year. So it's good to see Mizorowski with them for the full season. It's good to see Churio, coming off of the win with Team Venezuela, but I have low expectation for the Brewers this year. I really do.
Yeah, first four in the lineup should be able to do damage. Churio there. Terang was really good for USA. You had Contreras and then Yelich there in that 4 spot. Starters for this weekend, I should say, which will be Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Smith versus Mizorowski, then followed by Burke and Patrick, and Kay and Harrison here. And understand this, too, from a betting perspective, Tom. First 2 games we talked about, right? San Francisco, probably going to be colder temperatures here. Why? It's an outdoor place, and it's chilly temperatures in San Francisco. Take a look at the New York Mets. Depending on which day you get, you might have colder temperatures, some rain in the forecast. You take a look at Milwaukee and Chicago, Tom. No issues there. Why? It's a retractable roof. It's cold outside and rainy. Close that roof here, and we'll see what we can have. But a big favorite on opening day for the Miz, Tom, going up against Mr. Smith. If we flip it over and keep it in that same division, the Nationals, not a lot of expectations here. And what was a proud franchise here, which had a lot of superstar players, they don't have that anymore. And that's going to be taking on the Cubs, who are the favorites here to win the Central Division. Opening day starters, Cavalli going up against Boyd. The Cubs, a heavy favorite, Tom. No surprise at almost minus 200 here.
The Cubs, I think they win a division. That's where I'm going to start things off with them for this. That's my outlook for them on the season. When it comes to this game specifically, Matt Boyd put together a really solid year last year, and he kind of tapered off as the season went on. And that was one of the heaviest workloads he's had in years last year. He pitched 179 innings last year. Before that, he hadn't pitched more than 78 innings for 5+ years because he just dealt with so many injuries. So, that's kind of getting me to thinking, I want to back Matt Boyd early in the season before some of the attrition gets to him from the season. Now, I will say he was absolutely terrible in spring training, Donnie. Now, obviously, we're dealing with a small 9.1 inning sample size, but an 8.68 ERA is terrible. However, he had an xFIP at 3.9, and we always like to look at the differential. We always know ERA, not the stat we want to be looking at, but it's how that ERA compares and relates to the xFIP. Donnie, if I told you we had a 3.9 xFIP for the entire season, you would probably say that's a pitcher we'd probably be looking to back at some capacity, start in and start out. So they are deserving of being this heavy of a favorite. And man, the Nationals, they are not going to be good this year. I already have a position on the Nationals to have the fewest wins in the regular season at plus 750. They are completely devoid of talent.
And again, this isn't one of those where, Tom, you always just say something like the Pittsburgh Pirates, even though the Pirates have some talent, but they don't spend, they don't try to win. Like, there was a time in Major League Baseball where you just thought this team might be a runaway freight train. Great drafting, and every time they were bad at baseball and they got the number 1 overall pick, who'd they get? Strasburg. They got Bryce Harper, like legendary players there. Anthony Rendon. I mean, they had so many all-star players that they just gave away. And sometimes, Tom, you could say, well, we're trying to trade things in. We're trying to make things a little bit different. Let's get those prospects back. Tom, any of the prospects working out from any of those superstars that they just gave away?
No, because they got Mackenzie Gore, who was a top-level prospect in the Juan Soto trade. They also got C.J. Abrams. But then they traded Mackenzie Gore to the Rangers in the offseason. So it's like you bring in C.J. Abrams and Mackenzie Gore, who are supposed to be top-level talents from the Padres, and then you get rid of one of them. So, and now you don't have Juan Soto, of course. So the deals that they have made are just falling back on them, and they're not good because, like you said, they had so much talent to begin with, and now it's all Trey Turner, Harper, Soto, all these players, Scherzer, Strasburg. Now, Strasburg is a little bit different story just because of the injuries, but all those players are gone. And everything they got in return, none of it's worked out. Like, some of them are fine players, but that's not what you're looking for.
No, it's certainly not what you're looking for. And again, it's just like you had baseball by a wave. Like, okay, we're not going to let the Orioles get up. We're only about 50, 60 miles away. And now the Orioles are starting to put some money into the payroll. And the Nationals like, hey, just come out to the ballpark and enjoy the day, which certainly is not going to work here. Which brings us up to our next team that we're going to talk about, Minnesota Twins and the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles set up to have a really good hitting lineup here. We'll see if the pitching can come around. But also, Tom, I want to focus on the Minnesota Twins. Ryan's going to get the start. They're a plus 130 dog on opening day. The favorite, of course, is the Orioles at a minus 154 price. You look at Ryan Rodgers there in game number 1. But the Minnesota Twins, Tom, one of those franchises that doesn't spend a lot of money but usually competitive, sold just about everybody it felt last year, and now it feels like with a lockout on the horizon, I wouldn't be surprised if they get off to a terrible start, that by the All-Star break, they're moving everybody, including Byron Buxton at this point.
Last year, it was what, 10, 11, 12 players that they traded away at the deadline?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be the same this year. Last year, the Twins were the favorite to win the AL Central, and I vividly remember saying completely wrong. We did that preview show last year, and I remember saying it was a completely wrong number. I'm out on the Twins, and I couldn't have been more right. right? I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but they're just not a good franchise. They're not a franchise that spends. They don't have a good enough lineup. They have a terrible starting rotation. They don't have a good bullpen. Sell, sell, sell on the Twins. Frankly, if you were to give me odds on the Twins or the White Sox to finish worst in the AL Central, I might have interest in the Twins. That's how bad I think they're going to be. I think they will finish fourth, and then the White Sox are fifth, but it's actually going to be a lot closer than people realize. The Orioles, to your point, they're spending. They're at least trying to recover from what was a down year last year, try to right the ship, getting Pete Alonso, doing at least the right things. At least they're trying, Donnie, right? Whether it works out is yet to be seen, but at least they're making the right steps.
Look, I like the moves that they made, too, because you look at that division, you need power. Like, you can't just rely on, hey, let's get 3 singles and get some runs in here. You go out and get Taylor Ward, who even only hit 228 as a batting average, Tom, 36 bombs. Right behind him, you get Pete Alonso. 2 of those moves made, in the month of November and December here of 2025. Then you have Rutschman and O'Neill. Like, there is talent in this lineup that can surprise. But I love the fact that, and I still couldn't figure it out, and I asked Craig Mish this last time we had him, was like, why would Pete Alonso ever get out of New York? Like, New York has so much money they can spend, and he's a fan favorite, but something just didn't work between those two guys, between the guy, the agent, and the team. But if you look at Alonso this year, Tom, what are your expectations here? His home run prop, 37.5.
I think this could be a borderline career year for Pete Alonso. Like, just getting out of Citi Field, which is a massive pitcher's park, is a great thing for him. Now, a lot of people would say, if Pete Alonso stayed, look at that lineup that they would have if they added Bo Bichette and they still had Pete Alonso. But, man, this lineup for the Orioles, with Gunnar Henderson, who could be in for a bounce-back year, with, you said, getting Taylor Ward, with Rutschman, all these players that they have, they need to figure out the pitching. I think the lineup will be great this year. I think they're going to have a ton of power. Obviously, they brought the fences in a couple of years ago. But the offense will be there for the Orioles.
Yeah, and also when you take a look at the home run props here, when you take a look at Pete Alonso, he's going to play in Yankee Stadium. He's going to play in Toronto. He's going to play in Boston. He's going to play in Baltimore. Just a shame, Tom, we couldn't get Pete Alonso down there in Tampa playing outdoors here, because that would be a 40 home run season. I don't care if he hits 210. He's going to be launching some bombs into the seats here. But we're getting you ready for opening day in Major League Baseball, which is Wednesday night, and away we go. March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, and then playoff baseball and the World Series into the early parts here, Tom, of November. It's a great time here. We're going to go over some intricacies here, some home run props. It's what we do. It's Pro Baseball Today right here on the SportsGrid Network. It's Tom Vecchio and Donnie Rightside. Don't go anywhere, people. We'll be right back after this short break.
I wait until I get the tournament bracket. Then you'll see me start to talk about who makes a run, who's right to get picked off. You go back to last year and look at St. John's, right? They were on a roll. They got Arkansas, who was a better version of St. John's.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
You don't usually get Alabama basketball booked at less than 160. You're getting that now here. The real question is Aiden Holloway done for the tournament for an Alabama team who, we've seen under Nate Oates, they're more than capable of getting themselves to a Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and maybe even beyond that.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
9+ sounds pretty good here, Donnie, at around even money, right? Ooh. I got no problem there, trading at 54 cents. And again, all the pressure is on the higher seeds and the favorites, right? Start getting into that 4 or 5 minute mark in the second half, and you're down double digits. Some teams, it does not get better, Donnie. They don't pull themselves up off the court.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
NBA Central sent out a tweet yesterday. Hornets announcer Eric Collins says Jalen Duren is one of his favorite players to watch. Quote, I like talking about that body of his cut up like coleslaw, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure what the reference to coleslaw is. No idea, Donnie. I have no idea.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
AL East should be awesome this year. A lot of power, a lot of good pitching here, and a lot of good times. I mean, last year we had a de facto tie at the top of the standings, Tom, between the Blue Jays and also the New York Yankees. Blue Jays got the nod here. Maybe it's the Blue Jays again. Maybe it's the Yankees. Maybe it's those Boston Red Sox went out and spent some money. I'm going to start here. Ranger Suarez, Tom. Hey, that's a pretty good turn up here pitching the WBC. I look at the opening rotation for the Boston Red Sox through the first 3 games here, Tom. Crochet on Thursday. Saturday, it's Gray. Sunday, it's Oviedo. Ranger Suarez getting some updates here, a little bit banged up to enter the season. Don't like to see that, but he was, Tom, a major acquisition to that lineup here.
He was, and that's really what they need him to be. They need him to be that SP2. Sonny Gray is a good pitcher, but he's also not the same pitcher that he once was. I think he's just a middle-of-the-rotation, serviceable guy, but you need a duo to be alongside Garrett Crochet because, frankly, last year, the drop-off between Crochet and the rest of the pitching staff was just too vast. And, we saw the Tigers go out and do the same thing. They added that second guy behind their race, and I think Suarez is going to have a fantastic year. As long as you can put him in the right spot, and obviously the ballpark is always going to be tough for pitchers there, but Crochet, Suarez, then Gray, then Brian Bayo, that's the rotation I think they should be rolling with.
Take a look at that opening day starter, Garrett Crochet, absolutely fantastic. They'll be on the road to take on Cincinnati, Tom. That's a minus 158 price for the Red Sox, and the Reds coming in there as a dog price at plus 134. But as we just talked about Ranger Suarez in that long-term lineup, boy, taking a little bit of the wind out of the sails, man. Like, hey, Hunter Green's going to be our ace this year. Figured some things out, maturing there. Still a great power pitcher. Down with an elbow injury that they're hoping, Tom, will be back by July. That takes a lot out of it. You want to compete with the Cubs, you got to be healthy, you got to be playing well, and no Hunter Green for at least a couple months. That's not a good start for the Reds.
It's certainly not, and where their rotation sits overall, I think there's a wide range of outcomes. A lot of people are expecting Andrew Abbott to be due for some serious regression compared to where he was last year. And he was fantastic last year, but it was a little bit smoke and mirrors, right? Like the underlying stuff was not great. He was getting good results, but the underlying stuff wasn't there. Chase Burns, the flame-throwing rookie that they have, who has immense strikeout upside, also has, some clear downsides with the home runs and the walks and the control and all these sorts of things. So losing Hunter Green, having Andrew Abbott, who's due for a little bit of regression, having Chase Burns, who we're still a little bit unsure of. What we're getting from Rhett Lauder, we're not sure. But, Nick Lodolo should be a solid number 2 option. But you really want to measure number 3. I'm interested in the Reds, but it's like, they just need to be fully healthy and Hunter Green actually be himself for me to truly trust them.
Yeah, and again, it's a fun team that you want to buy into, but you still get the Cubs there, that big payroll here, probably the best team overall. We'll see what we get out of the Pirates, but you just can't lose that starting pitcher early. And also, Tom, it's not as if you wait till July and he's like, he's back to what his form was and high velocity and getting a lot of strikeouts. He's going to have to work his way back in. And at that time, Tom, we don't know how far back they just might be. So just hanging around there in the race in the Central might be the difference here. The one guy that we love in that lineup, though, was Elly De La Cruz, Tom. Last year, 37 stolen bases, 22 home runs, hit for 264. One of the premier young players in Major League Baseball. Talking about Elly De La Cruz with maybe he gets off to that hot start, maybe talking some MVP futures maybe.
Last year we saw his steals really decrease in the second half of the year. He wasn't fully healthy, a little bit banged up. I want to see him cut down on the strikeouts, as everyone has said for a number of years for him now. You just need to get that under control, be a little more disciplined at the plate. And I want to see him really push towards 40 home runs. Put together a 40-40 type season. And frankly, I think he could do a 40-50 type season, a 30-60 type season where he has this immense upside. So get the power going, get the strikeouts under control. And obviously, the steals will come if he stays healthy, but seeing 40 or 50 steals from him wouldn't be a surprise. It's really, to me, how the rest of the lineup does around him. Sal Stewart is a player I have my eye on this year for him. If he really does emerge as kind of being that duo to Elly De La Cruz, that's where they're going to have more power, more consistency in the lineup because, Donnie, as we know, it's a fantastic park for offense.
It is. And Eugenio Suarez back in the building there for the Reds. He had 49 home runs last year. He's absolutely clocking the baseball. Struggled a little bit with his power numbers once he got to Seattle, but who doesn't outside of Cal Raleigh? We'll see if he gets that resurgence here over the first part of the season and can hammer some baseball into the seats. Let me ask you this a question too, Tom, because we take a look at, the Red Sox and the Reds. Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, they're going to play. They take the day off. And it's going to happen with my Phillies as well. We'll get there in just a few moments. I can't stand that, Tom. I hate watching opening day and then my team not playing the very next day. Like, that drives me. I know why they do. Oh, it's opening day. If we have any rain, we'll have to delay it, and then we'll have a built-in day there, as if nobody's going to show up if that game is replayed in 2 months anyway at this point, Tom. I hate the fact that they play one day and take the next day off. I can't stand it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tease, right? That's what it is. Like, we get all this momentum, and then say, oh, hang on. You know, instead of having a full slate of games on Thursday, we only have 6 games on Friday or 7 games, whatever it is. And, you know, that's just, it is what it is with the scheduling. Like you said, we understand why they do it for the rain, the built-in rain delay, so they don't have to start off the year having to reschedule games. But, you know, it is what it is. I would like to see some world where they could fix things and just play an immense series from Thursday to Saturday and have them all 4-game series. That would be fantastic. But that's just not where we are.
I'll give you something, Tom, that you could pick on. How about those Los Angeles Angels opening day going to take on the Houston Astros? The Astros, Hunter Brown's going to go at a minus 196 price in the dog here. The Angels at a plus 164. We don't have to worry about anything there. Why? Because they're playing in Houston there with a retractable dome. They'll play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, Tom. We'll see if the Angels can get started out good, or do they get pasted right out of the gate?
Listen, Hunter Brown's awesome. But, you know, looking at the Astros, they still don't have Josh Hader back there at the back end of their bullpen. So, you know, their bullpen isn't as good as it could be. So, you know, a minus 196 on opening day seems a little heavy to me. That's all I'll say. Do I expect the Astros to be good this year? Yeah, but I'm not sold on them making the playoffs. Like, I don't think we can etch that in stone as we have for many other years. The AL West is going to be tough, at least among the top 3 teams when it comes to the Mariners, the Rangers, and the Astros. And then the Athletics, Donnie, that's the team that's going to cause a lot of trouble for the other teams.
Exactly. And the one guy I'm looking at in the middle of that lineup that has to rebound, or should I say at least be healthy, that's Yordan Alvarez. 6 home runs last year. That can't be the case this year. Only 199 at-bats last year. Can Altuve continue as he starts to get up in the eights? Isaac Paredes, we love him. Carlos Correa, is that knee going to be able to hold up? There are star-level players in that lineup, but maybe we're at the back end of the run for the Houston Astros, but getting a layup, it feels like, at least opening day, as close to a 2-1 favorite over the Los Angeles Angels. Maybe that can propel them. 3-1 on the opening weekend, things looking good for them. Maybe so, but also, what's up in the air for the Angels? I mean, they didn't show Ohtani. They got nothing for Ohtani, people. That's what happened. We'll be right back after this break.
I don't like to overthink it, Kevin. I really don't. And similar situation, you know, I feel the same way when it comes to betting. I find like that Sunday night, so, you know, you're watching the NFL games and all of us do it. Like, all right, let's look to next week now. You know what I mean? That Sunday, like, you know, the dust is settled on the game. They just end. So I'm like, let's look at next week. My first reaction is always the best reaction.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Why the regular season, Joe, does mean something, because Detroit is going to get a back-end team in the East to begin.
Yes, and it does. And it's just a very strange situation, unfortunate situation for Cade Cunningham in Detroit. But the good news is, if you keep playing teams like the Washington Wizards, well, you're not going to need Cade Cunningham to win those games like they did last night.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
We are really starting to see that slowdown, and we're anticipating it with March Madness this year. You know, obviously, you don't have as many states going online. You know, gone are the days when you're adding 10 states every year, so the numbers will inflate that way. And I mentioned prediction markets taking money as well. One firm, HG Gambling Capital, estimates that they'll add about another $500 million in bets.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
You can put your skill and your luck to work on Kalshi. Why? They're offering $1 billion here. If you can pick the perfect bracket, sounds easy, Joe. Just pick the perfect bracket, get $1 billion.
Yeah, I think the odds of actually doing that, Donnie, are about the same if you're expecting to hit the Powerball lottery 6 times in a year.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
Tarek Skubal, yeah, he should be rested and ready. He's looking to get paid a lot of money, and more importantly, on top of that, maybe win another Cy Young Award. But he's got a long season to do it, and also the WBC. Hey, maybe I'm not going to pitch. Maybe I will pitch. Maybe I'll drive through the rain at night to watch the boys. Maybe I'll be available, and it turns out he wasn't. But, Tom, who'll be available for opening day? Padres, Tigers, one of the better series to open up the season here, and a slight favorite here for Skubal going up against Nick Pivetta. Padres, expectations maybe not as high in the previous years because why? San Francisco Giants got a little bit better, and of course, the Los Angeles Dodgers are in your division. But the sky seems like the limit right now for Detroit. They spent some money on their lineup, particularly to get a number 2 8 starter, and away they go. I'm excited to see what Detroit has right off the bat, Tom.
I am too, and the duo of Skubal Valdez might be one of the best 1-2 punches really in the AL outside of the Mariners, which we'll get to in a little bit. But this is what they needed, right? And Jack Flair is not the same pitcher he once was. He had really struggled last year, but I think he is in for a rebound year. But you really need that consistent option behind Skubal to then let Flaherty, Mize, and Verlander, who re-signed with the Tigers, to be the back end of the rotation for them. But the 1-2 combo should be there. Donnie, you and I love the Tigers lineup because we know what we're getting from them. On the Padres side of things, I'm not sure they're going to have a great year. I think the talent and the name brand value that the Padres, that we thought that they had, isn't going to live up to expectations. And a lot of it stems from their pitching staff, where seeing Pivetta and King up the top is great. But after that, it's tough. And I understand that Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish both aren't fully healthy. Joe Musgrove is on his way back. But seeing Randy Vasquez, Herman Marquez, and Walker Buehler as the 3 options in a rotation does not make me feel all warm and fuzzy and comforting. The 2 top guys, Pivetta and King, are good, but the back 3 guys are terrible.
Yeah, and we'll see. Again, bullpen's going to hold up throughout the season for these guys because the expectations are Valdez supposed to get you to the 7th inning. Same thing with Tarek Skubal. And Kenley Jansen comes over as a free agent along with Drew Anderson and also Emmanuel De Jesus to try to bolster that pen. But as Tom points out, a lot of people just look at Detroit as, oh, they just need pitching to get by. That lineup's got a lot of things that you absolutely love. 16 home runs last year out of Gleyber Torres. You had 26 there out of Carpenter. You had 36 out of Riley Green, 31 out of Torkelson. A lot of young players on that lineup here that seem to, Tom, like, I don't say we have to converge and have, like, historic years for all of them, but I expect better years from Carpenter, Green, and Torkelson as those guys just continue to get more at-bats. 600-plus at-bats last year. I think it's going to work out in their favor. And also, when you start to project and say, what's going to happen this weekend, right? Skubal versus Pivetta, Valdez versus King, Flaherty versus Vasquez. I look forward even further, Tom. If you get to the playoffs and you're the Tigers, it starts with your 1-2 punch. And as you pointed out, maybe the best in baseball if they can stay healthy, which is going to be a knock up on them. I love it. I love the Tigers. I'm high on them entering the season. And I thought maybe, if you can even say, Tom, the best move of the offseason for me might have been if Valdez is healthy to Detroit and he pitches like we think he can. I think it might be the best move in free agency in this offseason.
It might be, and it might be one of the missing pieces that they need. Now, this is not to say that I think their lineup is perfect. We like their lineup, but to see them go out and get another bat, also potential to see Kevin McGonigal, their top prospect, if he develops into a star, obviously that can remedy some of the issues, and they don't need to make a big trade deadline acquisition and go out and get a solid hitter. But if he develops and the pitching is stable come September, also if they don't have the struggles that they had to end last year where they collapsed and lost the division to the Guardians, if they have more stability heading into the end of the year, they're going to be a dangerous team knowing that you have those 2 pitchers that can start off a series and then potentially pitch twice in a 7-game series.
Yeah, again, Padres are going to be a good baseball team. It's just hard, though, because, like, if the Padres were not in the West, like, hey, they can compete in any division. It's hard to compete with the Dodgers, like 103.5 as their win total here for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and we'll get to them. Superstars all over the place, and the one interesting thing about the San Diego Padres, Tom, was they were never that team that spent a ton of money. With the old ownership group there where their owner passed away, like, you know what? Let's start to spend more money at this point, catch up to the Dodgers. And then the Dodgers just lapped everybody in baseball. And it's like, well, why would I keep spending here when I can't outspend the Dodgers? And they sort of cut back at this point and leaning on their stars. Hey, Tatis. Hey, Machado. Hey, Bogarts. You got to step up your high-paid players to see if you can carry us here. And we'll see if that bullpen can help out. But I don't look at that starting pitching staff for the Padres and say, hey, they're going to do a lot of damage once they get into the playoffs. But as we know in the playoffs, Tom, so much it's not really about your starters. Hey, get us through 2 or 3 innings. We'll piecemeal that bullpen together, and maybe they can do that. High expectations for the Padres for me, not nearly as much as the expectations I had, Tom, on those Tigers here. Is it legitimate for you, Tom? Could the Tigers have the most wins in the American League this year? Do you think that's a possibility?
I think it is based on the fact, I think their biggest competition would be the Mariners. I think the AL, like you could say, the AL would be another answer, one of those teams, but I think those teams are just going to beat each other up, right? So no team's going to be running away with it.
I'll tell you, Tom, we've all been waiting for this moment here. Next segment, we're talking Philadelphia Phillies, people. It's Donnie Rightside, Tom Vecchio, getting you ready for opening day right here on the SportsGrid Network. Hour number 2 of Pro Baseball Today, SportsGrid Network, Donnie Rightside and Tom Vecchio getting you ready for opening day, and I love it. Like some people, Tom, baseball's a little bit too... I love Major League Baseball season. I love it all the way through. It carries us right to football season, gives us a lot of fun, and also, it's like a poker game. Every single night, different advantages that you try to play. Oh, I can't believe this pitcher got blown up, trying to capitalize on XFIP numbers and all that good stuff. It's going to be fun to watch you play. But Tom, as we start to talk about some of these teams, buyer beware, I like to say, in late March and early April. That's the month I do like to take a look at some dog prices here with teams that can actually win, because everybody thinks on opening day, Tom, they can win the World Series. By the time we get to June, we're already playing for next year at this point. Talk to the people at maybe how you approach the opening of the Major League Baseball season handicapping.
Well, the easy answer is to say that you take it a little bit slow, right? If you're worried about, these teams settling into things, decrease the unit size and just, sprinkle across the board just to get a feel for things. We want to ease our way into the season. And then as we get to Memorial Day, a marker that people like to use, that's when we have a good sample size for pitchers. So it has to be a combination of multiple things. What we're seeing from the pitcher currently in terms of his first few starts, what we saw from them in spring training, were they on fire in spring training? And then really what they did last year. Have they been regressing compared to last year? Have they been improving? Were they terrible in spring training? All of a sudden they're off to an amazing start, or vice versa. They were awesome in spring training, and now seemingly they can't throw a strike. So we have to take everything into consideration, right? We're not just taking, what he did in his recent start of 4 innings, hitless ball, and 10 strikeouts. It's like, he's perfect. We're going to look to back him every game, because really that's going to change as the season goes on. Same thing for hitters. There are hitters who are terrible in spring training, and then seemingly that doesn't matter and they're on fire to start the season. So we have to take as much as we possibly can. But then once we get a big enough sample size, I'll probably just be sticking to this year's stats and go from there.
Yep. I love it. Once you hit May and get like 30 days in, the hitters are probably there because they have a lot of at-bats. Pitchers still ready to wind up form. By the time you get to mid-May, it should be all systems go at that point here. And also, people, don't lose your bankroll on opening night. Don't lose your, lost all my money on Yankees and San Francisco Giants over 6.5. Don't do that to yourself here. But let's continue down the list here. These opening day series, Tom, and maybe the one that's the least important, maybe, is the Rays taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. And maybe in the past, like, hey, what do you mean the Cardinals? They're always going to be vying for the Central Division. Baseball heaven has turned into baseball hell, where they now have to say, hey, come out to the ballpark, $20, eat all you can, fill up the seats, have some fun, because why? We're going to stink on the field. In this game, Rasmussen is going to take on Liberatore, and it's a minus 118 price for the road team, the Rays here, Tom. Looking at the projected starting matchups this series, Rasmussen, Liberatore, Martinez, McGreevy, and Matz versus May here. Not a good season in store, as it looks like right now, at least, for those Cardinals, Tom.
It certainly does not. If you were to ask me, I think the Cardinals finish last in the NL Central. That's my take coming into the season. I think the Cubs win the division. I think the Brewers will be right behind them. Some combination of the Reds and the Pirates. I think the Cardinals finish last. That's my expectation. If you are a home underdog to start the season, that should tell you enough. Now, this is not to say it's the same thing with the Giants, who are going to be home underdogs, or whatever other teams. The Cardinals being a home underdog tells us enough that they can have a top-line starter to at least get them to a pick-em price against the Rays, who are not even expected to be good. It's not like they're playing the Phillies or the Yankees or the Dodgers, Donnie. They're playing another team that's not expected to make the playoffs, and you can't be a home favorite. The only shining light for the Cardinals this season would be J.J. Weatherholt, who's up there as one of the top players for NL Rookie of the Year. He's going to be intriguing, but the team overall is not going to be something that we're going to want to pay a ton of attention to.
Used to be over, like, they would have their staunch veterans there for the Cardinals, and every year they bring up 2 to 3 players out of their farm system that were really good and ready to go, and they just don't have that anymore. But my question to you, Tom, on the Tampa Bay Rays here, no longer going to play in Steinbrenner Stadium down there in South Florida, or should I say in Tampa. They're back to the Trop here. Junior Caminero hit 45 home runs last year. We're not going to say he's going to go on a power shortage, hit 17, but his prop this year, Tom, 35.5. And people, look, we remind them, they're no longer going to play in that atmosphere, Tom, where every day was 90, wind blowing out, and that ballpark was flying.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting issue of how much we're going to see Caminero potentially take a step back in terms of his raw power based on the hitting environment being drastically different. It's not like a slight downgrade. Now, granted, he's still going to be playing a lot of his road games in the AL East, which we talked about with Pete Alonso and the Orioles. He's still going to have really nice hitting environments when he's away from home. I wonder about how much of a negative decrease going to the Trop is going to be. So I expect him, if we just apply like a little bit of variance to it, it's like a 10% decrease compared to where he was at home. I think that'll give us the ballpark. So him finishing with the exact same amount of home runs, no. Him still going over his prop, I can buy into, but listen, with 1 year of MLB experience, he's still super young. I can buy into the talent that he has long term.
Buy into this, Tom. Opening day in Philadelphia. The Texas Rangers come to town. Opening day is going to see Sanchez taking on Eovaldi, and the Phillies as a favorite at minus 148, plus 126 split here as the underdog for the Rangers. 2 talented lineups, high expectations on both sides. And if we're just looking at the estimated starting pitchers for this weekend, which will be Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's Eovaldi versus Sanchez, DeGrom versus Nola, Gore versus Luzardo. A fantastic series setting up in Philadelphia. And the Phillies, not favorites to win their own division here. Maybe they can get back. You take a look at the Texas Rangers, one of those teams that we were very high on last year, but when your pitching staff breaks down and your lineup breaks down, the expectations drop. I'm expecting for big changes in that win department this year for the Rangers, Tom.
I love this series. This is maybe the best series of opening weekend. We have 6 good to great pitchers, right? Like we're maybe not sure about Mackenzie Gore. I think he still has some upside, but we have 6 solid pitchers across the board, which is not something that every other matchup can say. Obviously, the expectations for the Phillies are super high. I'm personally invested in the Rangers this season. I have them to make the playoffs at plus 120. I don't think they'll win the AL West. I think that goes to the Mariners. Not a surprise there, but I do think they'll be in firm contention for the wild card along with the Royals and the Orioles. So I love the Rangers this year. I'm going to back them. I think they're going to be in for a bounce back year. We got to remember, Donnie, they won a World Series just a couple of years ago. Yeah. And then the Phillies, we know what the expectations are for them. The top of the rotation is great. When we're getting back Zach Wheeler into that rotation, of course, plenty of power in that lineup, re-signing Kyle Schwarber in the offseason. This is just a fantastic series from top to bottom.
Yeah, keep an eye on Crawford there in the outfield, how he's going to mature in his de facto rookie season. Andrew Painter's going to be in the rotation. He made the starting lineup here, we should say, for the starting roster if you open the season. But that's a great series here. Now let's get to the fun stuff here on the West Coast. The Dodgers expected to run over everybody, Tom, in Major League Baseball. 103.5 is their total here for their wins on the season. You take a look at the opening day starter. Zach Allen's no slouch here. Yeah, he's a plus 190. Get used to it. Going up against Yamamoto and the Dodgers at a minus 230 price. There will be no discounts this year, Tom, on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani to start the season. It's not fair, Tom. It's just not fair.
It's not fair. It's not fair knowing what they have at the back end of the rotation, especially, as Blake Snell gets healthier as the season goes on once he gets back in there. But it's a crazy price to see a plus 190 for a team that's, going to be in the wild card hunt. Like, that's where the Diamondbacks are expected to be. They're going to be plus 190 on this money line, but they're expected to be fighting for a playoff spot. Frankly, when it comes to the Dodgers win total, everyone's talking about 103. I see that as a one-sided bet. That means you have to take the under. I can't bet the over on that. There's so little room for error that going through a streak where they play 500 baseball for a 2-week stretch, that puts them so far behind the 8 ball, that leaves them no room in order to hit the over. So the expectation for the Dodgers are always going to be sky high as long as they have this core group of players. But man, minus 200 or over that on the money line is nuts.
Great. Like, they have unbelievable starting pitching, an unbelievable bullpen now. Signed one of the best closers in baseball, Edwin Diaz, away from the Mets here. And then you said, you know what? Our lineup is really, really stacked up here. Let's throw Kyle Tucker onto the logs here as a free agent there in January. And Shohei Ohtani is your leadoff batter who hit 282 last year with 55 bombs, stole 20 bases. And now he's going to pitch even more this season, Tom. Answer me this. If Ohtani doesn't get hurt for a long stretch, he's the MVP, right?
Yeah, we know it. We know it. If he doesn't get hurt for a long stretch, even if he's an average pitcher and has a 3.7 or 4 ERA, if he's pitching and still has a strikeouts and he has 30-90 for home runs and RBIs, he's going to win MVP.
Just absolutely fantastic. Entering in the season, the Dodgers heavy favorites. Get used to it, people. It's the way it's going to be the entire summer. Pro Baseball Today will return right back after this short break. The Seattle Mariners, people, what to make of them? Really good baseball team. Cal Raleigh up for the MVP last year, lost out to Aaron Judge. Talented pitching staff across the board. A lot of wins are expected here. I know my guy Tom Vecchio absolutely loves the Mariners this season. If we take a look at them opening up against the Guardians, a tale of two teams. One team expected to compete in the AL, one team that might be expected to sell more players in the AL as it goes. But opening day, Tom, Bibby's going to go against Gilbert, a minus 178 price here as a favorite towards the Seattle Mariners. But let me ask you a question about the Mariners, Tom. Opening day, wins or losses, yes, that's fine. But we did see the WBC. Cal Raleigh and Randy Arozarena and his teammates had some words, but apparently patched it all up and should be good to go. Is that a facade that we should worry about? Or, hey, man, come on. They were just having some fun. The WBC, their teammates, they get it popping again.
I think they've moved past that as the reports have indicated. Heat of the moment type of thing, rivals when it comes to playing for the countries. I understand that, but as long as they say it's past them and they agree to it, I'm fine with it. The expectations for the Mariners are too high to have this little thing in a exhibition contest essentially play a negative impact on their team, actually play like a bad thing for them. Like they have to move past it and realize there are bigger things at hand.
Yeah, right out of the gate here, 4-game set, and it keeps you saying, why are they skipping the games? The Mariners also have a retractable dome, so they don't have to have that built-in game after opening day that they would have to take off that day. Take a look at the 4 pitchers here that we're expecting here for the Mariners, Tom. Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby, and Wu right out of the gate here to test that lineup for the Guardians here in a true pitcher's ballpark.
It's awesome. It might be one of the best, if not the best rotation in all of baseball, knowing the talent that they have, knowing the additions that they made to the hitting lineup overall. The Guardians, I'm not high on this year. I don't think you were high on them either. The pitching's okay, but really the lineup's not good. And seeing what they did last year, needing this insane comeback in September, coupled with the Tigers' collapse in September, if they needed that just to eke out a division win by tiebreaker, if that's what they needed just to make the playoffs, that means they weren't expected to make it at a certain point. And really the floor for this team is very low and the ceiling is also very moderate just to begin with. But it's all about the Mariners in this series.
Fun MVP race last year in the AL, Tom, which had Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh down to the last day. It's like, who's going to win this out? And rightfully so, it was Aaron Judge. Overall, the metrics did make a little bit more sense. But we're talking about a catcher, Tom, that hit 60 home runs last year. And it's like, well, he plays in Yankee Stadium. He plays in Wrigley Field. No. He hit 60 home runs as his home ballpark being in Seattle, which is incredible up there at T-Mobile. But let's go over this number, Tom. 247 at the plate last year, 60 bombs. If you go to the sports books now, most of them have Cal Raleigh listed at 39.5 home runs. That's a 20 home run drop, which, whoa. He's still going to be able to hit mid-40s at this point. That is as sharp a number as you're going to get, Tom. What do we think about Cal Raleigh's home run props for this year?
I think it's spot on. I think expecting in the upper 30s is what we should be looking just from who he is as a hitter. Regardless of what he did last year, who he profiles as a hitter is where we should be seeing him in the upper 30s, maybe the low 40s. The strikeouts are always going to be the issue for me when it comes to Cal Raleigh. And we saw that in the World Baseball Classic where he struck out a lot. That's again, he's a swing and miss hitter, but when he hits it, it goes far. So the number I would never bet. Frankly, I'd bet the under before I bet the over. And that's really just because you're betting into a public number. You're betting into a number that the books have been ready to adjust. After he hit the home runs last year, it's not like they're going to be asleep at the wheel. They knew they're like, okay, we have to fine tune this number this year because of the public interest that Cal Raleigh has. So I would never bet into a number that's moved before I had a chance to get action on it.
Yeah, and take a look at, one of the better hitters in baseball. I love J-Ram here for the Guardians here. He's listed, Tom, at 28.5 as his home run prop this year. You take a look at Progressive Field, Jacobs Ballpark, whatever you want to call it in Cleveland here. Not the easiest place to hit home runs, but Jose Ramirez is fantastic here. Do you think he has a chance here to pop 30 bombs?
I do. And listen, if he's getting to 30 bombs, I legitimately think he has a chance to win AL MVP. I've always thought that about J-Ram. He's truly one of the best, if not one of the most underrated and underappreciated hitters when it comes to the MLB. The team dynamic just never brings him the spotlight. But if he goes over 28.5, I legitimately think he's going to have a chance to win AL MVP. And we may be having a conversation. Let's say Cal Raleigh has a modest year overall. We may be having a Judge J-Ram AL MVP conversation, and J-Ram's going to have great stats. He could go 40-40 for home runs and steals, but he may still never win it. But I still think he'll be in the conversation.
And if you said, we're going to talk a little bit more about the Kansas City Royals, Tom, but also the same effort that we put into like Junior Caminero, like, oh man, that's interesting here, where he goes from a true hitter's ballpark as a home team here now to go to one of the worst hitting ballparks back in the Trop. I want to talk to you about Kansas City, because keeping the people updated as well on some of the changes that are made in the ballparks, not just the team themselves. Kansas City in the summer, hot temperatures, wind blowing out, but still truly a pitcher's ballpark. They're moving the fences in, which brings us right up to Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino. And I know you love the Pasquatch out here. He's listed right now at 25.5 as his home run prop here, Tom. Talk about Vinny Pasquatch out here and what you think his expectations for 2026 are.
He's not only going over 25.5, I have him for 30 plus at plus 150. And
plus money.
You got to make sure to forget, the best lines that you possibly can. DK has this 30 plus hop for Vinny P listed at minus 110. And meanwhile, it's plus 150 on FanDuel, which is an insane discrepancy. But he's got a ton of power. The 32 home runs last year. Like you said, the fences being brought in Kansas City is fantastic. They're also being lowered. They're also being tapered down from 10 feet down to 8.5, which is always a huge boost for the hitters. The heat is good. The pull air rate for Vinny P is high. The hard contact is there. Everything that we possibly want from him, combined with the lineup in front of him, with Jack Caglione hopefully stepping up and improving on his early start, Bobby Witt, Sal Perez, Maikel Garcia. They have the pieces to truly be not only a great offense, but also be a wild card team this year.
Yeah, Vinny Pasquantino, by the way, World Baseball Classic, had that power stroke going already at this point. That might be able to lead him in. 25.5, that should get, he could hit, again, 210 and still hit 30 home runs. He could be Joey Gallo out there and be fine. Like, I think Pasquantino does get over that number. It only helps that the fences are brought in here. The fences are lowered. And, of course, we're going to see a lot of 90-degree temperatures starting in late May all the way through the summer out there in Kansas City. Should be some fun. But, Tom, after the break, I want to ask you a question about another player here in the AL East and his home run props here. Maybe a power surge is coming back here on the dial. And I'm not going to tell you what team that is. Hint, it's north of the border in a place called the Six, Tom. Pretty big guy. He can hit some home runs. Find out who that guy is next right here on Pro Baseball Today. Doing right by your players. Now, I teased before the break here, Tom. We're going to get to some players here in Toronto that we want to talk about in the Toronto Blue Jays for the season. But the Philadelphia Phillies have extended Christopher Sanchez 6 years on his deal. He's like, yeah, he deserves it. He's a really good pitcher at this point. But understand this, Tom. Just a year and a half ago, the Phillies got maybe the absolute steal of all steals. Basically signed Sanchez like a few $1 million a year contract when he's one of the best pitchers in baseball up for the Cy Young. They didn't have to do this here, but they did. He's going to make a lot more money here, but players see that out here, and that's taking care of one of your own. Yeah, we got you on a contract that we can just let it ride out and steal from you at this point right now, but the fact that the Phillies reached out to the agent goes, look, maybe we're not going to give you full market freedom right now as a free agent contract they're going to give you, but we know we got the best of this contract here. We love you, want me to stick here. They give him the big extension here and get him paid as he should be.
As he should be, right there in the NL Cy Young last year. That's where I expect him to be this year. And it's really a combination of things that you say, would potentially want to draw players in where, we got to remember when, I think back to when Zach Wheeler left the Mets and signed with the Phillies. Like, Wheeler was a good pitcher, but he wasn't the pitcher he is today or was last season, right? So I think it speaks to the development. Like, so if a pitcher signs with the Phillies, knowing it's like, listen, if I work in their system, there's going to be a higher upside for me, because you said they paid Chris Sanchez a couple $1 million. They didn't expect him to be a Cy Young candidate, and now they're willing to essentially reward him for it. But yes, you said it's not the full max amount he could have gotten if he went to free agency in December, but it's that middle ground where it's like he worked with them, he got better, the behind-the-scenes stuff is great, and now we're meeting in the middle saying, we're going to pay you. You did awesome. We'll pay you to get to, and we want you to stick around. That's great for him. It's great for the team. It's great for the development. It's great for the fans. It's what you want to see in sports.
Yeah, no, it was the right move by both sides to say, look, and again, they didn't even get one over because you didn't know what Sanchez really was. But it's one of those deals like I might be the best pitcher in baseball making like $3 or $4 million or $5 million a year as opposed to what some of the bigger pitchers are getting at this point. As we digress here, Tom, talking about Toronto, those Blue Jays did a lot of damage last year, and they just one win at home, Tom. Game 6, Game 7, you're the World Series champions and not the Dodgers. It wasn't made to fruition. But the question I asked you before, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. last year, 23 home runs on the season. You take a look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. now, listed at 29.5. That's climbing up now. Vladdy with a 30 home run season. I think the power returns, Tom, and I like the Blue Jays this year, but more importantly, I like Vladdy to hit some bombs this year, enough to get me to 30.
I liked him last year for a lot of home runs, and he didn't get it done. And, really the power was still there for him, the raw power. A lot of it came down to, the ground ball versus the fly ball rate, sometimes the swing path stuff and the launch angle, all these sorts of things. Listen, he was still great last year. The Blue Jays were great last year. It just, the underlying stuff for the minutia for his bat path wasn't perfect. I think he can, rebound from that. Also, I want to think that maybe Vladdy wants to step up and think he needs to do a little bit more because Bo Bichette is gone, right? Where there's like, oh, he's got a little sour taste in his mouth from, the guy he came up with in the minors left the team, and now he has to carry the team. But we have high expectations for the Blue Jays. That lineup is awesome. And don't sleep on some of the lesser or unknown guys or somewhat unknown guys, Barger and Clement. Those guys can hit, and those guys get on base and score runs. Everyone wants to look for Varsho and Kirk for the power, but Clement and Barger, those guys can hit and score.
Yeah, they'll sit at Wednesday night. Obviously, we have the Giants and the Yankees opening day, which is Thursday. Not even going to play that day. They'll have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series here. And take a look, Gausman, Cease, and Ponce here will be the estimated starters here for the Blue Jays. Opening day, Tom Gausman will get the ball minus 164 price, plus 138 for Severino in this spot. But also, understand this, Nick Kurtz, that lineup is fun for the Athletics. And no, they're not moving their ballpark. They're still in Sacramento, which is going to be great. You take a look at Kurtz last year, absolutely lit it up, Tom. Can he do the same this year with a 36.5 home run prop?
I think he certainly can. He tapered off as the season went on, especially in September, where the average and really dropped. The strikeouts went through the roof. A 35% strikeout rate in September is just terrible. But that's the kind of hitter he is, where he needs to get the strikeouts under control. The power is always going to be there for him. But like you said, that lineup for the Athletics is awesome. It really is. When we see Soderstrom up there, where we see Brent Rooker, Langeliers. I keep saying this about the Athletics, not the Astros. The Athletics, they're going to win a lot of games 8-5. They may lose games 8-5 as well, but they have a ton of power, and we got to be ready for the fun in Sacramento now.
No doubt about it. Severino pitched to a 4.54 ERA last year. Springs 4.11. Savali 4.85. Lopez 4.08. So you know those games are going to have some of those high team totals, but that's okay. You want to look for RBI props out there. You want to look for base hit props. We are going to have a lot of fun this year with the Sacramento Athletics before they eventually get to Vegas and then probably put a humidor in it. We're not going to have any more home runs. Stay in Sacramento. We'll be right back after this break.
It's not sustainable. Pitches throwing too hard and not being healthy, so that don't benefit anybody as well. So it's better to, if a guy throwing 97, why not just throw 94, 93 and learn how to pitch? And then you can last longer. So it's more about keeping the product, on the field and being on a consistent basis.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
What about the expansion stuff?
Yeah, but doesn't it make a lot of sense, Kev? So, but it's 28-29. He's already talked about, I'm playing in the Olympics in 2028. Retirement isn't on KD's mind right now. Play in the Olympics in 2028, and then the 2029 season, play where it all started, baby. Seattle.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
If you could argue UConn's more overseeded than, like, the idea that UConn was battling for a 1 seed, quite frankly, never made any sense to me when you look at where their metrics were stacked.
UConn will be great as long as they don't play St. John's, apparently, in the tournament. They're good to go there. But you put them at a 5, Kevin. Now here we go again, like last year, Bill Self versus Rick Pitino.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Major League Baseball announced yesterday that they will be having a partnership this season with a company that we've come to be very familiar with over the last 6 months. Polymarket is the exclusive prediction market partner of Major League Baseball and the only platform allows to use teams, logos, and marks. Representing the latest pro league to embrace the prediction markets.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
We got some great matchups that we can talk about on opening day, and then there's some of those matchups that are like, but still keep in mind in Major League Baseball, you don't have to take the side of the total, the money line, whatever. There are so many different ways you can play some of these games, Tom. But opening day, how about this? We just saw sold-out, passionate crowds across the board in Miami. Do we get the same feeling for Rockies and Marlins, which you'll see opening day here on Friday, Freeland versus Alcantara? And how about the Marlins, a -172 favorite on opening day, a +144 price here on the Colorado Rockies, Tom. Before we get to that game itself, let's just focus on the Colorado Rockies, Tom, and your expectations for the Rockies this season.
I want to say they can't possibly be as bad as they were last year. Just based on the natural variance of baseball, they can't possibly be that bad. Some of the losses that they had last year, maybe – I'm not going to say all of them turn into wins or the blown leads turn into wins, but even if we say a third of them turn into wins, they're going to be better than they were last year. They'll still be the worst team in baseball or one of the worst teams in baseball. Hopefully it's the Nationals for my sake, but they got to at least be somewhat better. And we're seeing a lot of conversations about, is even baseball in Denver at that altitude, is it even sustainable anymore? Can they even maintain a team there anymore between the lack of production, the lack of fans, the lack of talent, whatever it is? And you always talk about it. Do players even want to go there in free agency?
But your point is valid, because I always am beating that drum as well. Like, the expectations, like Denver is not a small market. You can spend money, but also at the same time, that somebody has to take your money as well. Maybe a hitter will do that, but players, they want to live in a nice city, which Denver is, no doubt about it. But the one thing, they want to have a chance to win. Right now, you don't have any chance to win at that point. And if you are a pitcher, you're never going to go there because like money is one thing, and yes, you want to get paid as much as you can, but legacy also is on top of it. When you're sitting around as a 55-year-old guy lighting up a cigar, you got a ton of money in the bank, and you, hey, what was your ERA, Dad? It's close to 5.5. Whoa, I thought you were a good pitcher. Look, I was. I just didn't have any chance pitching in Colorado. But the expectations, like moving forward, are like they're not spending money. They haven't spent money in a couple years. You look at the lineup; it almost looks like a bunch of AAA guys. I mean, heck, like Mickey Moniak was a former #1 overall pick by the Philadelphia Phillies. Hasn't done it. He's your cleanup hitter this year, Tom. You look at the pitching staff: Freeland, Lorenzen, Quintana, Sugano, Dollander. Each one of those guys with ERAs above a 5 at this point. I don't know how you survive. And on top of it, it's not like, well, let's go out and spend some money. Like the Dodgers are in your division. You're never going to be able to outspend the Dodgers at this point.
Really not. And, like, again, the hitters will go there just because they want to, maybe some hitters go there and think it's like a reclamation project where if they just get right, then in a year or two, they can then sign a real contract with another team. But I always wonder that, like if the Rockies were to offer some pitcher 5 years, $100 million, would he be willing to go to another team for 4 years and $75 million just because that team has a chance to make the playoffs? Right, he's willing to take less money, less security in terms of the years, in a different market, just because he wants a chance to win. And the Rockies know how much they'd have to overspend by too much in order to just get players, and then it hampers the rest of the lineup overall.
By the way, the Marlins, let's look at their output, because most people look at it, well, they probably can't compete with the Phillies, and they probably can't compete with the New York Mets at this point and the Atlanta Braves. But we always say this on a year-to-year basis, like who can handle the Marlins probably wins that division, because if you give up those games to the Marlins, it's hard to make them back against the Braves, the Phillies, and or the New York Mets. And you're right, Marcy, Edwards, Stowers, Ramirez. It's a shame they play in such a tough luck ballpark, meaning they don't like to keep the roof open, which at least gives you the heat and humidity where that ball can travel. It's cool, it's air-conditioned, and the ball doesn't travel all that well. But this is a sneaky team. Ken Alcantara returned back to form as a possible Cy Young guy. Yuri Perez, Max Meyer, you got Paddock, you got Jansen Junk. The capabilities there for them to be competing in the East are there. I just don't know if they have enough firepower at that point. But make no mistake about it, as I said, Tom, this team is probably going to decide the East race, not by winning it, by picking some of these teams off in the month of September and August.
That's really what it comes down to. Like the top 3 pitchers, I think, are good. If Alcantara can really step up, he could be a great pitcher. Perez and Meyer, I have a ton of interest in. I think they are, really solid, like SP2, SP3s. But it really comes down to the lineup, what we get from the bottom half of the lineup. And, to your point, as you're saying, is the top 3 teams in the NL East, which are very clear, put them in whatever order you want. They can't take the Marlins easy. Like they can't take them lightly. You may be able to take the Nationals lightly. Think, we can win 2 out of every 3 games. But the Marlins are going to be a pesky team. And we saw at the end of last year, the Marlins finished strong. They knocked off the Mets to end the series. They were celebrating on this field, so the Mets didn't make the playoffs. That's the mentality they need to have every series, that we're going to be a thorn in the side of these better teams. And if they show up thinking that they can take a day off, we're gonna scratch away wins, and that means the Marlins are probably getting a lot of plus money outside of when they're playing the Rockies or whatnot.
Yeah, no, we'll be betting them, we'll be watching them and having some fun. It'll be interesting just to see how this season actually turns up. And again, baseball's dead in Miami. Nobody wants to go to watch. Put a good team out there on the field. You see how baseball thirsty Miami is, and yet they still can't draw any more than 100 fans for the home games. Win some baseball games, get some superstars. Maybe you get some guys in the ballpark there to watch it. Another good series, Tom. Opening weekend here. That's going to be the Kansas City Royals taking on the Atlanta Braves. Opening day matchup. Cole Reagan's going to go for the Royals, going up against Chris Sale, who just got him also a big extension for a year as well. A -144 price on the Atlanta Braves, and the +122 price as a dog price here on the Kansas City Royals, Tom. But I want to start first with the home team. It's the Atlanta Braves. No team was running through pitchers and hitters in their lineup more than the Atlanta Braves. A year that you thought they might be able to compete for the division, they fell off. Why? They just kept on losing all the bullets there with their pitching staff and their players. Acuna, Baldwin, Olsen, Riley, Yastrzemski, Albies. The position players and the pitchers are there, Tom. What are your expectations for a bounce back on the Braves, or maybe more of what we saw last year with the injuries?
I am expecting a bounce back here for them, and obviously a lot has to go right in order for that to happen. Austin Riley has looked great in spring training, and he was dealing with a lot last year. And Ozzie Albies had a ton of injuries last year. Michael Harris started off super slow, and obviously Acuna wasn't there. Strider's looked okay in spring training at best. It really just comes down to, I don't want to say tread water, but can they just tread water long enough to stay in the race in the NL East with two other great teams, the Phillies and the Mets? And then once they get the reinforcements from a Smith-Shawver, from a Schwellenbach, can those guys get back into the rotation of the team? And then they're still in the hunt. We said this about the Reds. Like, if Hunter Green can be back and they're actually in the hunt, it's good for them. The Braves are kind of in that same spot. They need to stay healthy and stay in the race, and then they'll have the shot. But if one of those things slip, they're going to fall too far behind. The Phillies just have more talent. The Mets just have more talent, and they just won't be there.
Yeah, 3 teams. Look, that's going to be a great race here in the NL East. The Phillies, the Mets, and the Atlanta Braves. And also taking a look at a key contributor here to the bullpen, bring over Robert Suarez from the San Diego Padres to go with Raisel Iglesias. That's a really good bullpen. If they stay healthy at pitching, the sky's the limit for the Braves. They should be able to do some damage if, again, they stay healthy. But, Tom, then we flip it over to the Kansas City Royals. I'm interested in this team. This team is a fun team. We've been watching them for a couple years. You got Vinny Pasquantino, home run props here, Salvador Perez in that lineup, Jackie Caggs maybe having a great season, Bobby Witt, Maikel Garcia. I love this Royals team, and on a day-to-day basis, they're going to get a lot of attention from me, Tom.
They certainly are. And, between the fences being brought in, as we spoke about, two young players in their lineup, Jack Caglione, as we talked about, and also Carter Jensen, one of their top prospects who's going to be catching with, Sal Perez doing a lot of the DHing. They have the pieces. They have guys to get on base with Garcia and Witt. They have power behind them. They have good pitching. I'm not going to say it's overwhelmingly great, but it is certainly good. The bullpen is solid. It's not amazing, but it is solid. I'm interested in the Royals. I think they're going to be that wild card team this year, where I think it's easy to say that the Tigers win the division. Like, not a shock. I think most people would agree with that. The Royals are going to be in the hunt for the wild card. Them, the Rangers, and the Orioles, I think, are going to be teams fighting for a wild card spot.
Yeah, excited. And again, the fences coming in doesn't mean like, hey, everybody's going to hit 10 more home runs. But you've seen it. You've watched a lot of baseball. Oh, that deep fly out to the warning track might get out of the ballpark, might hit the fence at this point to give you those extra base hits. But if you look at the projected lineup, Garcia, Witt Jr., Pasquantino, Perez, Caglione, India, Jensen, Collins, and Isbell, it's a really fun lineup. There's speed in that lineup. There's power in that lineup. They're young, trying to start their ways of saying, you know what? Let's be a perennial playoff contender at this point. And that first weekend series, the Royals and the Braves, that should be one to watch here at this point. So, Tom, now that'll do it for our matchups here on opening day, getting you ready. But also, Tom, we got to hit some of these markets that the people need to know before the season hits. Who's going to hit some home runs? Who's going to be the Cy Young? Who's going to have a chance to be the MVP in the American League? Is it just Aaron Judge? Is it just Shohei Ohtani or some other players that you might want to take a look at? And also, some other fun on the horizon, because why? Opening day is here Wednesday. Pro Baseball Today. We'll be right back.
I wait until I get the tournament bracket. Then you'll see me start to talk about who makes a run, who's right to get picked off. You go back to last year, look at St. John's, right? They were on a roll. They got Arkansas, who was a better version of St. John's.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
You don't usually get Alabama basketball booked at less than 160. You're getting that now here. The real question is Aiden Holloway done for the tournament for an Alabama team who, we've seen under Nate Oates, they're more than capable of getting themselves to a Sweet 16 and Elite 8 and maybe even beyond that.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
9+ sounds pretty good here, Donnie, at around even money, right?
Ooh.
I got no problem there, trading at 54 cents. And again, all the pressure is on the higher seeds and the favorites, right? Start getting into that 4 or 5 minute mark in the second half, and you're down double digits. Some teams, it does not get better, Donnie. They don't pull themselves up off the court.
Prediction Markets Edge, only on SportsGrid.
NBA Central sent out a tweet yesterday. Hornets announcer Eric Collins says Jalen Duren is one of his favorite players to watch. Quote, I like talking about that body of his cut up like coleslaw, end quote. Interesting.
Yeah. Not quite sure what the reference to coleslaw is. No idea, Donnie. I have no idea.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
MVP races here. We'll start with the American League. And last year, you had a great race all the way through the summer here. Aaron Judge, I mean, guy was flirting with 400 for the first half of the season, has a sensational season and takes down the AL from a worthy opponent there in Cal Raleigh with 60 home runs. Just wasn't good enough to get him over the hump. But no surprise this year, once again, Tom. The New York Yankees outfielder Aaron Judge, he is the favorite. Not odds on. It's at a plus 185 price, followed by Bobby Witt, which seems like he's going to be there all the time. The power, the fielding, as well as the, chance to hit for average. It's always going to be there. Then there's Cal Raleigh, who came up just a little bit short last year at a 7-1 price. The top three, Judge, Witt, and Raleigh. Do you feel that should be the order that they're placed in right now, Tom?
I think it should be, and I think that's going to hold pat for a couple of years. Unless someone else jumps into the picture, I think Cal Raleigh would be the one to drop out. And, we could see a Gunnar Henderson. We see a Roman Anthony jump into that next tier of the, 10-1 area. But that's really what we're going to see for the majority of the season. If these players just get off and start doing their normal thing in terms of production, I think we'll see some minor juggling, but Judge will be the favorite. The players will behind him, will be somewhat close. And then it's going to be a pretty big drop off to that next set of players.
It is. And then we take a look at those next set of players here. Because, again, I'm intrigued. If I have a bounce-back effort from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and they can win the American League, he's going to be up there in the MVP race, 16-1 price here. And then you see J-Ram, which you talked about, a great hitter, 16-1. I don't know if you get the extracurriculars, as I like to talk about, where the Guardians might be able to win the division and play meaningful baseball late in September to sort of put them over the hump and give them that national spotlight. Gunnar Henderson, who was very good there in the WBC. Roman Anthony was in the WBC at a 20-1 price. Is there a chance, Tom, listed down? And also, Tarek Skubal, out there, 40-1 price to win it as well.
Yeah, Skubal, if he could win a third straight Cy Young, maybe they would give him MVP along with that. But, there are paths to Roman Anthony, Gunnar Henderson, J-Ram winning the MVP. Like I said, I think Jose Ramirez legitimately has a shot to go 40-40, and that would put him in the conversation. But him going from 16-1 to being 5-1, at that Bobby Witt, Cal Raleigh level, that's realistic. Does that mean he's going to win the award? No, but I do think that there's a clear path forward for those types of players to make big impacts and then move the odds. But again, does that do enough for them to supersede what Aaron Judge has done and will continue to do?
Yeah, take a look at the AL market here for the Cy Young. Is it going to be Skubal once again? He won an arbitration over Detroit. He wants to get paid. Does that mean he gets paid by another ball club next year, or they go to arbitration again? It's kind of crazy where Skubal, he's so good at pitching right now. Didn't want to pitch in the WBC outside of that one game, but he's going to be a force right away. He'll be their opening day starter, but he is the favorite, followed by Garrett Crochet and Jacob deGrom at 10-1, which I still get a kick out of here. Are we expecting him to return back to form where 200-plus innings pitched, a ton of strikeouts, and he stays healthy all the way through the season like we used to see with the Mets? Valdez at 14-1, being that second fiddle here to Tarek Skubal. How do we approach the market, Tom, coming up on opening day for AL Cy Young?
It is what it is up at the top. DeGrom being there is crazy. I think we both agree with that. The answer for me is still and will always be Brian Wu at 17-1. And I think that's really interesting, where he has the shortest odds of any Seattle Mariner pitcher, right? He's 17-1. His teammate Gilbert's right behind him. Yet Brian Wu is fourth on the depth chart in the rotation, because as we showed about it before for the Mariners opening series, they are going, they're going with Logan Gilbert 1, then Castillo, then Kirby, then Wu as the 4, but Wu is 17-1. I think that's a little bit interesting, and I truly believe he has the talent to win the Cy Young. And I think it may be the same situation where the J-Ram situation, where he can do enough to get into the conversation with Crochet and Skubal, but I'm not sure he does enough to unseat one of them, because if Skubal doesn't win it, I would have to assume it's Crochet this year.
AL, we have a favorite in Aaron Judge. The NL, we have an odds-on favorite. That means minus money, and it's Shohei Ohtani at a minus 140 price, followed by Juan Soto at 7-1, Ronald Acuna at 11-1. If you're looking at Ohtani and you want to fade him, let's just say, you're just hoping he gets injured, because we will say this time and time again. If you are out there and you're voting on the MVP award, and Shohei Ohtani pitches to a 4 ERA with 31 home runs and a 260 average, he's far and away the best player in Major League Baseball and should win the award. But the expectations, Tom, that Ohtani sets for says, wow, he didn't get 50 home runs? He only stole 13 bases? Boy, he only pitched to a 4.15 ERA. Yeah, he's not the MVP. Like, who can steal it from him? If Ohtani plays the whole season, who can steal it from him, Tom?
There's only two scenarios that I would see that would give us a legitimate argument for another player winning NL MVP. Number one would be Kyle Schwarber having 65 home runs, which I think is doable. It's obviously in the very upper end of outcomes. Or two would be Acuna doing what he did in 2023, which was 41 home runs, 149 runs, 106 RBIs, and 73 steals. Like, we need such an extreme outcome that we're having Kyle Schwarber flirt with a 70-plus home run season, or Acuna doing something so unworldly that he is literally producing every single at-bat. Whether it's a sac fly, whether it's a run, a home run, a walk, he steals a base and comes in and scores. It has to be something so dramatic that it will bring pause to the voters to say, hey, Ohtani's great. He was a good pitcher this year. He was a really good hitter. But what this player doing, we have to take note of.
Yeah, you take a look at Ellie De La Cruz at 30-1. So why would that be interesting? Look, small ballpark there, power surge here, steals some bases. He can steal some of the limelight at that point. Also, we talked about a pitcher of caliber of Tarek Skubal in the American League. Can he get hot, win a Cy Young, and say, you know what, I had one of those best pitching moments here of the last decade, and maybe be in that MVP race? You take a look at the National League, Paul Skeens. He's actually 35-1. The dominance is there where he can win the Cy Young and maybe factor in, because if the Pirates are going to be, Tom, in the playoff race, Skeens was probably out of his mind this season, and maybe that propels him up there.
That's what it would have to be. Like, they're winning the games. Like, because they always talk about, but Pirates lose games when Skeens pitches, and they lose the games 2-1 because he only gave up the one run, and the bullpen blows it. But it has to be something like that. It has to be Skeens doing everything in order to put them into the playoff conversation and pick up wins.
Yeah, a lot of talented players there. Of course, Juan Soto, 7-1, Acuna, 11-1, Francisco Lindor, same team as Juan Soto, 22-1. And then even some new contributions there. Bo Bichette, 80-1 price, all the way down the way. I don't know how you can do that with a home run prop of 17.5. The MVP hit 18 home runs, and maybe hits 401 here for the New York Mets and sort of sets that new standard here. Michael Busch, Seiya Suzuki there of the Chicago Cubs. So a lot of fun and a lot of great players here to start. And keep in mind, Wednesday night, the fun begins with the New York Yankees taking on the San Francisco Giants. Game number 1 at 8 p.m. Go down in style, getting you ready for opening day. It's Tom, it's Donnie. Talking a little Sunday action here in Major League Baseball.
I don't like to overthink it, Kevin. I really don't. And similar situation, I feel the same way when it comes to betting. I find like that Sunday night, so, you're watching the NFL games, and all of us do it. Like, all right, let's look to next week now. You know what I mean? That Sunday, like, the dust is settled on the game. They just ended, so I'm like, let's look at next week. My first reaction is always the best reaction.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Why the regular season, Joe, does mean something, because Detroit is going to get a back-end team in the East to begin.
Yes, and it does. And it's just a very strange situation, unfortunate situation for Cade Cunningham in Detroit. But the good news is, if you keep playing teams like the Washington Wizards, well, you're not going to need Cade Cunningham to win those games like they did last night.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
We are really starting to see that slowdown, and we're anticipating it with March Madness this year. Obviously, you don't have as many states going online. Gone are the days when you're adding 10 states every year, so the numbers will inflate that way. And I mentioned prediction markets taking money as well. One firm, HG Gambling Capital, estimates that they'll add about another $500 million in bets.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
You can put your skill and your luck to work on Kalshi. Why? They're offering $1 billion here if you can pick the perfect bracket. Sounds easy, Joe. Just pick the perfect bracket, get $1 billion.
Yeah, I think the odds of actually doing that, Donnie, are about the same if you're expecting to hit the Powerball lottery 6 times in a year.
Prediction Markets Edge. Only on SportsGrid.
We love baseball. We love opening day. It's Wednesday night. National game. Standalone. New York Yankees, East Coast taking on the San Francisco Giants, West Coast here. But if we look at the odds, Tom, to win the World Series, it's by far and away the Los Angeles Dodgers. They are sitting at a plus 210 price at a lot of outlets to win the World Series. The next closest competitor, it's the New York Yankees, who will play opening night at a 10-1 price, followed by the Mariners at 12-1, Mets at 13-1, and the Phillies at 16-1. So I'm going to ask you this question right now. The Dodgers won the last 2. They're looking for a 3-peat, Tom. I give you the Dodgers or the field. Who we taking?
I'm taking the field. No matter how much talent the Dodgers have, no matter how many wins they have over the past 2 seasons, the World Series, baseball is a highly variable sport, and getting the field and only needing 1 out essentially for the Dodgers to lose and having every other team in my pocket, that's what I would take. There's too much going on over the course of a season for me to trust for them to go back to back to back. What they did is amazing. They have clearly the best roster and the most talent, but they fell under their win total last year. They were up against it for the final 2 games on the road, and they barely snuck away with the game that went to extra innings. So they barely got through it. To see them do it a 3rd time would absolutely stun me.
It'll be interesting to watch it play out to 103.5 is their win total on the season. It feels like they should be favored every game and run away with it. But as we know, if you might be running away with that division, who's pressing the needle down the final 10 games of the season to get 105 plus wins? Or let's just say that at this point. Should be fun watching the Dodgers and betting against them. But those price points are going to be juicy if you want to back the Dodgers this season here, Tom. Some of the most fun things you're going to see on these shows and across the networks is approach the Major League Baseball season and how you handle it. Tom already told you, he's likewise the same as myself. Watching April, feeling out the process. Whoa, look how good the Pirates are in first place at the end of April here. Yeah, we'll see how that lasts in May, June, and July. But I do like to take some of the dogs early on in the season, but understanding the talent on the mound, the talent at the plate, and in the bullpen, those things are going to be changing here, Tom. But I love the statistics, the ERA minuses, the FIP minuses, the XFIP minuses, the Sierra number prices here that you can get. I love baseball because every single day, you're just going to rely on the numbers as opposed to the eye test. And it's a great sport, completely different from, let's just say, backing an NFL game.
It really is. Every day we're trying to put together a new puzzle. Like we're trying to solve it and put the pieces together to see, okay, this pitcher is terrible right now, but he's actually due for some positive regression. Like he's a good pitcher.
Correct.
He's just getting some bad results and vice versa. And the same thing can be said about hitters where he has great underlying metrics. The hard contact rate is there, but he's not producing in some capacity. Where the fly ball rate is through the roof, but we're just not getting any home runs. They're all turning into outs. So those things will settle in as the season goes on. And obviously as the weather changes for so many of these teams, things will become much easier for the hitters. But we always say, like, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This is day in and day out. There are days, especially we will see on Saturday, Sunday, where it's on for 12 hours straight, baseball. And there's different things in every city. There's different park factors. I mean, the weather is changing every single day. There's so many things that you can find an angle and then stick with that market and just keep going until it doesn't work. Like, it's that simple.
By the way, Tom, looking at some of these, advanced, I should say, weather reports. 66 degrees here, it looks like, for the Giants in the San Francisco game here. And that'll carry on through the evening. Late night, it gets to be about 59 degrees. But there must be a heat wave coming across because opening day in Cincinnati, Boston and Cincinnati, Tom, 79 degrees at first pitch with the wind blowing out to left field at about 13 miles per hour. You love to see that. But how about this one, Tom? Tampa Bay and Seattle. game number 1, Tampa Bay and St. Louis, I apologize. 90 degrees at first pitch with 15-mile-an-hour winds blowing out the center field top. Look at that. Usually you get into April like, hey, man, freezing cold. You got to be wrapped up. Just swinging the bat hurts at this point. You tell me I'm going to get a game in St. Louis at 90 degrees to start the season? Oh, man, come on now. I'm already wrapped up. I'm already in, Tom.
I mean, and it's going to be 60 degrees a week from then. But yeah, jumping on these trends early and knowing that the weather impacts things, especially, and it impacts things in different ballparks. Wrigley Field, we always talk about. But if we can get a decent ballpark like St. Louis, which is neutral to pitcher-ish for the most part, but we get some high temperatures and some high winds, those bad pitching staffs, it's not going to be an easy start to the season for them.
No, you know what I love, too? The overreactions that we're going to get from the first series, maybe even the first game of the season. Yankees get beat 4-1. Pah! Judge, terrible to WBC, rolling it over. Season's over at this point. My goodness, man. Baseball is such a long season. The ebbs and the flows. Don't you remember talking, Tom, so many times about the Detroit Tigers? What? Why are they playing the rest of the season out? They wrapped up this division only to see what happens in the second half. It's going to happen. The fun is going to be there, and the SportsGrid Network is going to be with you all the way through having some fun. Donnie Rightside, Tom Vecchio, doing the job here on a Sunday, getting you ready for opening day. Baseball season is here, people. And the SportsGrid Network is the place to be. For Tom and Donnie, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you later.